When I was about 5, 6, I wasn't in school yet. My parents lived on a farm, and there were no other kids around except my baby brother. So I didn't have playmates, but I had a dog, and he was my buddy, and his name was Pugs, and he was like a German Shepherd Airedale mix, and he was very protective of me, and we'd had him about 3 or 4 years of my whole life almost, and I really, really loved this dog. And there were other dogs. There was on a property at the time, a Chesapeake Bay Retriever that was my uncle's. But anyhow, one day, Pugs, that was his name, chased one of my dad's cows. And we had an electrified fence, but because Pugs chased the cow went through the fence, tore it down, and ran off into the woods, and Pugs went following him. And my father is furious, I hear, and there's other people around, the workmen or whatever, and my father was furious from what the dog did. But I'm standing there and all I'm thinking is my precious buddy pal is in trouble. So without my father seeing, I follow Pugs in the world, into the woods, and which were close to the fenced area. It wasn't maybe 10, 20 feet away was where all the trees started. I went quite a ways in, looking and calling him and going in, and I don't know when finally I realized I couldn't find him, and it stopped to go back. And I turned around, and I didn't see how everything looked the same. And I looked around, and then I finally realized I didn't know how to get home. And it was just a really scary, scary thing. And I'm a little girl lost there, and I started screaming and crying at the top of my lungs. And I wanted my mommy and help me, and just blubbering and I remember lying looking up at the trees and just crying. And fortunately, the Chesapeake Bay Retriever, which is named Teddy, had followed me. You can just scream and cry so long, and you have to realize it's not doing any good. And at that point, I knew it was getting a little late in the day, and even scared me more, as my father had used to tell me if I were ever in the woods at night to climb a tree because of timber wolves. And he said they look like dogs. And so I had another fear. There was a timber wolf. But at that point, with the crying and the fears, and I realized I have to climb a tree if it gets dark. As young as I was, I started thinking of what to do, and I figured I would follow Teddy because dogs know how to get home. So he kept snooping around the woods, and I just followed him. And I don't know how long we went, but it wasn't dark yet, so I didn't have to climb a tree. And we finally came to a road. It was a dirt road in the woods. And I just assumed it was the road my father made, that they went to the timber people then. And I didn't know which way to go. But I knew a road, even as a child, would hopefully lead somewhere to people, was less scary than being in all the trees. So I followed Teddy. He made the right turn, and we turned right, and I walked and walked and walked and walked, and I finally saw a farm in the distance. And I was so thrilled, and I started, because now I'd find help. And it turned out it was my farm, but I didn't recognize it at first, because I had been so confused, I was scared and then confused, I didn't recognize it at first. And finally I got close enough, and I started screaming for help, and there was my father. And then he starts yelling at me instead of saying, "You scared your mother half to death." But I didn't care, I was just so happy to be there. But you know, in a way, the story is sort of like a metaphor for life. That many times in our life we get lost and we don't know which way to turn. And sometimes we turn the wrong way and sometimes we turn the right way. But eventually, if we turn the wrong way, we'll find out. Because if I found the logging camp, I would know I went the wrong way. But even when I started finding the right way and I was walking in the right direction, I didn't recognize it because I was confused. So we get lost in life, and at times we get confused. But we've just got to keep on walking, and we'll maybe eventually find our way home.